Morning campers, right, we've got Sarah Henderson with us today and she's from Purely Public Relations and we're going to be talking about her business, kind of what you do a little bit and then some of maybe the hurdles that you're going to come across on your journey of growth, if you like, as to what your actual 10-year plans are and maybe some of the hurdles that you're going to hit along the way. So I'll let you introduce a little bit about your business. So it's kind of like you can have a bit longer than a minute, so it's not a networking stand-up arrangement, but maybe a little bit of history about it and kind of what you do and what you provide into your clients, really, I suppose.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for the opportunity and lovely to chat. This is actually my first podcast, Matt, so I'm breaking my virginity here and I'm trying to
I wasn't going to say that.
It's all right, I can say that. I can kind of practice, I suppose, what I'm preaching to my clients about doing media interviews. It's kind of now I'm in the hot seat, so it feels a bit warm here. But so Purely Public Relations and PR. So I've worked in PR and comms for over 20 years. Always worked in this industry. Some may say for your sins, but someone's got to do it. I'd always wanted to set up my own business. It was something that I thought about from the very first PR job that I ever had in London. I could just see where there was PR agencies maybe that were doing it wrong. Yeah. And I just thought, do you know what, one day I'm going to take a punt and do it. But as with all things in life, things get in the way. I definitely didn't have enough experience, definitely didn't have the confidence to make that plunge. So I was really lucky in my career. I went and kind of worked at some really amazing organisations. I've been so lucky. For 10 of those years, I worked in the charity sector. So I worked for the Prince's Trust and Teenage Cancer Trust. And that's where I think you really kind of learn your skills in PR and comms because you don't have budget to do anything. Yeah. You have a really small team. So you literally beg, borrow and steal resources. So you become very resourceful, basically. And then kind of came out of the charity sector and went a little bit more into the commercial world. And that was kind of a conscious choice to do that. I kind of felt like the charity sector is amazing, but it's an emotional roller coaster working in that sector. I, especially working at Teenage Cancer Trust, dealing with sort of death and dying every day was a really hard thing to start keep going with, really.
Mentally, it's hard.
Really tough
Exposure to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tragic and really tough. And also the pay, unfortunately, you're probably going to meet lots of other people on your podcast who also work in the charity sector. Sadly, the pay in the charity world is awful. So it's actually really hard to survive sometimes as well. So as much as you obviously want to do good, you can't work for free. Yeah. So that was also a conscious decision to also, actually, I need to earn some money at some point. So kind of went more into the commercial side and worked for some really big British businesses that we all know and love. So when I worked for John Lewis for a while in their head office and really did completely different PR there. So I've been lucky. I've done different types of strands of PR. So I've done consumer PR, so working on FMCG type products, health, and then kind of went into B2B and corporate comms, which is predominantly what I was doing at John Lewis and Waitrose, was doing about the corporate kind of messaging of the business that owns them. But then, with all things, when you work in retail's a really tough place to go and work in. And when I arrived, retail was definitely feeling the pinch from the likes of Amazon and the emergence of online. So, John Lewis and Waitrose were not immune to that, and like other retailers, they were suffering. And so eventually, after the sort of pandemic sort of finished, although it's kind of still going on now.
Define finished.
Exactly. My role was made redundant, and that then kind of sparked a thought, okay, shall I maybe set up the business now? But people kept kind of persuading me, saying, why don't you try freelancing, be an interim contractor, do mat covers, all that kind of good stuff. And I was really lucky. My very last day at John Lewis, I got offered a job to go and work for TK Maxx and HomeSense because they saw I'd got retail experience, and just literally walked into another job, which was really lucky. And then kind of had a few other contracts after that. And then the very last contract finished last year. And I just had to have a word with myself and say, if you don't set up this goddamn business now, you're literally never going to set this thing up. And so I kind of took the plunge and I thought, you know what, I'm going to really regret this if I don't set this up. So Purely Public Relations kind of was born in May 2024 with the kind of idea of learning all the things that I think work really well from a PR and comms point of view, but don't repeat the stuff that I feel like doesn't work, both from a culture point of view, but also from a delivery kind of point of view. So the vision is to obviously grow the business. I mean, I'm only 18 months young now, so I'm still very much in the early days, but hopefully I'll grow.
So your clientele, how did you come across them? Or so you kind of finished your TK Maxi type consultancy roles. Thought May 24, now's the time. So how did you get your customers? Were they ones you had existing relationships with? Or
wow, do you know what? I was a bit controversial, and I feel a bit mad that I kind of done this. But I actually made a conscious choice not to nick or bring any clients that I've previously worked with. So literally it was a blank piece of paper, start from scratch. So I kind of made a decision in May last year. That very first week I was, I suppose, effectively operating. I did my first ever networking event. And it was really random, actually. So you probably know Lindsay Clay from Connected Brighton. So I literally turned up to my first ever networking event. I'm there literally 10 seconds. I'm in the lift going up to, it was at the Malmaison Hotel in the Marina. And I bump into Lindsay. I've never met Lindsay before. And she says to me, oh, what is it that you do? And I say, oh, I work in PR. I've set up my own PR agency. And she went, oh, that's really funny that you mentioned that, because I've got someone that I know really well that needs PR. And she literally gave me his contact details, and then he was my first client. And I remember thinking to myself, my God, this networking malarkey is really easy. I was like, if this is literally going to happen in the first 10 seconds of getting in the lift, I'm going to be fine. But
all
obviously
this,
it didn't.
Harnessing the relationships over many years. No, bang, straight in there.
Exactly. But obviously it didn't happen like that. I think that was literally beginner's luck. And in a way, maybe that was the universe saying to me, do you know what? I think this was the right decision that you made. And I probably needed for that to have happened sort of fairly early on, because it kind of gave me the confidence to kind of keep plugging away. So it probably then took maybe another couple more months after that. And I've basically made or secured the clients predominantly through networking, doing speaker slots at events where I've been able to maybe demystify PR a bit more so people understand it a bit more, and then word of mouth. So that's so far how it's been. But it's been a gradual process. It hasn't been as quick as the lift experience.
The elevator pitch worked for
it literally was the elevator pitch, wasn't it? It was.
So what's your kind of, I mean, I'm guessing those clients are probably a little bit smaller than the John Lewis and the TK Maxes. So what's your kind of target audience that you're going for now? I mean, I know on your form, which we'll touch on later, you want to obviously get involved with bigger companies. But at this moment in time, your kind of ideal avatar of a customer is what?
Yeah, so it was interesting because I suppose I've worked in this game for a long time. And I kind of really enjoy supporting the smaller kind of businesses, because a lot of those businesses that I've come across probably have never done PR before. They probably don't understand it. They haven't kind of really understood what the benefits are. So actually for me, it's been a nice challenge, because I'm there to help hopefully sort of educate them and hold their hand a bit, and hopefully demonstrate some kind of impact that it has. So I kind of made a decision initially to work with those smaller stroke medium-sized businesses, because I thought the impact might be better for them, and also really satisfying for me as well, because I can see maybe I'm making a difference. But as you know, Matt, the knock-on effect of that is that quite often those businesses don't have lots of budget. And it's quite a scary investment for somebody who has never done this before. I'm asking them to maybe not do advertising anymore. So remove budget that they would have put in paid for ads and put it in PR.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
And I wonder, that was kind of where I was sort of leading with that, really, because obviously, in my experience, there's a massive leap between like your John Lewis or your local celebrity type business, someone that's got like 4 branches of whatever they do, and they're maybe in the public eye quite a lot. But they probably don't have the budget or the need all the time as well, because PR, I don't know if you find this, but PR to me always feels like it's for the big boys, and they need, like the owners need some sort of training in how they act in a public environment, whereas your small business owner might struggle a little bit with seeing the value out of that. I guess that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I made a conscious decision when I set up the social media channels for the business, and I suppose the news/blog section on the website. The intention has always been to basically demystify PR, and one of those things is you don't need to be a FTSE business or a business that is nationwide to undertake PR. Like, PR is literally available for everyone. And I strongly believe that whatever type of business, brand or charity you are, everyone's got a story worth telling.
Yeah.
It's either that you just haven't discovered it yet, or realise that you're basically sitting on a bit of a gold mine, and you need perhaps somebody like me to help really sort of extrapolate that from you. But it doesn't have to cost much money. And I think when I sometimes have to really kind of put it down in a black and white way, if you kind of think how much maybe a print ad might cost you in the local paper or in a regional magazine or something like that, PR's really good value. You basically don't pay for the space for PR.
Yeah.
All you're paying for is the time for someone, say, like me, to undertake that activity for you. Or if you're really going for a big old launch of some kind of respect, then obviously, you're going to have some maybe additional cost like event space or photography or videography or something like that. But on the whole, it's actually really good value, so a small business can do it.
Yeah, so I suppose, just for the sake of the audience, if I use myself as an example, are you talking... So a lot of people would know me from the main business, Charles Cox, but we have lots of other businesses. So either if I wanted to pull upon the fact that I'm more than just this, or we do a lot of work with Brighton and Hove Council, where we buy dilapidated properties, do them up, and then we give them to the council so that people that are in need of housing can live in them. A lot of people would turn their nose up at sort of that type of tenant. We're not kind of dealing with sort of drug issues, but this is more like domestic abuse and stuff like that. So I guess like that's a story that, I mean, I'm quite well versed in telling that, but say like I did that and that was like something I enjoyed, your kind of your job, if you like, is to pick apart that person and then find those things that they really want to kind of maybe make more in the public domain in that sense. Yeah,
it's kind of like that. Obviously, like every time you work with a client, you've got to be really clear together on kind of what the key objectives are, like with anything really, isn't it? And also manage expectations as well. So I think part of the way that I sometimes demystify PR is I think people, rightly or wrongly, think they're going to get in every national newspaper under the sun. They're going to get on, the biggest TV channels and stuff, and it just doesn't work like that. It obviously, if you're a journalist, you're going to publish a story because there's news in there, and that is the key word, news. So I sometimes have to try and work around something. If there isn't obvious news, then we have to work quite hard to try and make it news.
Yeah.
And even then, it might not still be good enough because you're competing against lots of other really good news as well. So, yes, there are things that you can do. And I think one element of PR, I mean, everyone thinks about it as this truly traditional media relations bit. PR is much more than that. And you could very much position yourself as a thought leader, for example, and that doesn't just mean that you're having to be doing media interviews. You can be doing speaker slots, events and conferences, trade shows, making sure that your kind of thought leadership is everywhere on your social media channels and your website, and if you've got a marketing newsletter and all that kind of stuff, like the comms element needs to be sort of integrated in everywhere, basically, doesn't it? So,
Fine. And just so I've got a good understanding of it. So if somebody was to come to you and say, like, this is what I want to portray to the world, even if it's locally in the local newspapers, not quite so national.
Okay.
Essentially, your kind of business model is to go in and go, right, this is what we've had our exploratory meeting, if you like. This is what I believe you want. And here is I guess really your aim is to have an ongoing relationship with them rather than have a kind of, here's a target that we went and then my work is done.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd always want to have clients on a retainer basis. Yeah. And that's not necessarily me saying that from a selfish point of view, that it gives me, I suppose, stability.
Well, we're on a podcast for business, aren't we? You have to have income coming in or you can't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've done my charity work. But exactly, I'll go to heaven. But it's more actually that I truly believe you're not really going to be able to move the dial very much if you just work with someone for like a month or two. It does take a while to get the cogs turning. PR it's very rarely an overnight success. I think I can probably count on maybe only a few fingers where that has happened for a business or a individual, and that's probably been by accident, if we're honest with ourselves. They probably didn't even expect it either. So I think to give yourself a better shot at it needs to be a long-term investment. And yes, of course, you can turn it off after 12 months if you felt like you don't have the time to dedicate to it, or you perhaps don't have the financial investment at that time to do it either. But I kind of think once you start, it's a bit like social media, isn't it? Once you start it, you kind of need to carry on, don't you? You've got to be consistent, haven't you?
It's a beast, isn't it, Luke?
It is. I know. We all have to do it. None of us enjoy it, but we have to do it. It's a means to an end, isn't it? So, that would be my advice to clients normally, is that, yes, of course, I can work with you on a project basis, and I have done that since I set the business up. But really, if you really want to make a step change, you're going to have to invest a bit longer term.
Because I see quite a lot of people do that and then they disappear. So it's like it's not much of a commitment to kind of just do it for a short period, really. Hence why, we were talking off air about these podcasts, if you like. It was really popular at the start, and then we've kind of had to rein it in a little bit just for my time. But actually, we've persisted with it, if you like. Rather, it'd be very easy for someone to go, do you know, I haven't got the time to do that or whatever. So you've got to kind of commit to these things.
100%, yeah. And funny enough, I've had similar conversations with clients, even with current ones that I've got now, where they've actually come up with the idea and they're like, I really would quite like to do a podcast, Sarah. And I've kind of had to say to them, right, okay, let's just really think about this, because to your point, you've got to dedicate time to this and you've got to be consistent with it. And once you start it, you kind of don't want it to just feel like, I tried it. Perhaps it wasn't quite what I thought. And then it might mean a slight reputational risk to you for that.
Exactly,
so I think, you've got to really think long and hard exactly what it is that you're willing to commit to.
Yeah, perfect. Right, well, I think we should get on to maybe what your long-term plans are, really. So I've had a little read of your kind of notes and the rest of it that you filled in. So this is, for anybody that doesn't know, this is part and parcel of coming on the show. You've got to give us some information.
Damn it.
So one of the things is we ask, do you think you've built yourself a business or a job? Just to clarify what we mean by that is, like, a business might be something that maybe operates without you in it so much, as opposed to like you're like the owner runner. So I know later on you kind of get to the point where you're like, I'd like to grow it, so maybe I'm not in it so much, if you like. So because obviously at the start you're the team lady and also the marketing person, as well as the person raising the invoices and doing the VAT return.
100%. So
you're everything at that moment in time. Whereas a lot of owners, they get to about probably 10 members of staff and they're not sure if they're a business owner or it's a job for them, so they're kind of stuck in that kind of gap. But that's the kind of aim for you, really. So we've got your goals for a business from a year from now, to grow and to secure a couple more retained clients for at least 12 months and hopefully employ someone on my journey. So I suppose the retainer thing, like you mentioned about 12 months, I guess a retainer for a longer period would be more desirable. So how do you go about getting new clients or these people, apart from, I know you from networking and the various, what other avenues are you doing?
Yeah, so if I'm honest, that's probably where I maybe have fallen down slightly in that I'm really proactive with the networking, and I try and obviously build relationships with people that I have then met as a result of that. But I would say probably what I haven't done as much is more what you would maybe call the cold outreach, I suppose. So there's a few businesses and brands actually based in Sussex, for example. We're really lucky where we live, aren't we? In that there's some really amazing businesses that have been really successful, haven't they? They've set up here, they've grown, etc. I've approached a few of them, and actually it's kind of worked out quite well in that I went straight to the top. I went to the CEO and, I found something that I saw either in the media that I thought was relevant for them to know about, or I was just speculatively asking that, I know that you work currently with a PR agency, but normally what happens in businesses is they normally kind of review them after maybe 3 years. Yeah. So not knowing when their 3-year cycle is, just to ask them to kind of perhaps remember me when that review time comes. And so, I've had some kind of positive feedback. At least they've replied, which is a good thing. Yeah. But I would say I've been a bit sporadic with that. I've only done that a handful of times, and that's maybe partly because I've become so busy managing my existing clients that I haven't probably reserved enough time for that. But then also maybe it's a confidence thing as well, just thinking whether can I do it.
How would you, if you brought more staff in, or a member of staff or whatever, would you be looking at somebody you brought in to train up, or somebody that's already got that skill set, and maybe even as a freelancer or PAYE? Is that kind of the target?
I think ideally someone that has got a broad understanding of this industry. It's I'm more than happy to train people up, but as you know, it is pretty time intensive doing that, and especially when you're trying to grow, I probably don't have as much time to dedicate to that person, and I would feel really guilty for that, not being able to provide that. So,
I think a lot of businesses fall foul at these sort of early stages where you're almost you need to put the time in to do the business development and get those clients, but at the same time you've got this cost of a member of staff and also managing them as well. And it is, I don't know what your financial position is, but a lot of the time you kind of have to take a pay cut in order to take these people on and go, right, I'm going to do to the next step. Bit like you make the leap in May 24 because you go, right, I'm never going to do it now.
Exactly.
A lot of people never get to that leap of going, right, I'm just going to take someone on, and effectively probably going to be earning minimum wage, in fact less than the person that I've employed often, but it's in the pursuit of a bigger thing. Because I think you're right in terms of reaching out to maybe the sort of Sussex or more regional business owners that perhaps don't have PR or maybe do a very light touch of it. I don't know, I can't remember who it was where. In fact, it might be somebody that would be useful for you. So Thompsons, who are a pallet delivery distribution company in New Haven. Right. We had Andy on the show a couple of times now. He's come back as well. That's how much he loves it.
That is a really good podcast.
We did a year, what have you done? And he implemented some of the things, but not quite, not everything. But he doesn't have a PR thing, but he's in. It's just they did a management buyout and they purchased a company. He's a sort of business that probably needs a PR person, but he's also talking to him. He appointed himself as the CEO or managing director, but didn't really like the role because he was the business development manager. And I was like, but you're the best person to go out and sell those people. And I was like, do you follow these companies? He was after Waitrose and the rest of it, because if they can get involved with that, they're very green. So they've invested a lot of money in eco-friendly haulage lorries and the rest of it. And I was like, but it strikes me Waitrose have probably got a remit to try and be a bit more green. So they might be on your target list. I don't know what your target list is, Andy, but who's going up there? Who's going and seeing Waitrose at their trade show when they're, maybe put a stall on at an exhibition or something like that? Do you follow them on their social media pages? Nothing at all. He didn't do any of that. So I was like, well, I think you need to give up your role as the MD and appoint somebody else to do it, because know that business inside out. You literally
Yeah.
just put your house on the line to do a management buyout.
Wow.
And you're now not growing the business, if you
Yeah.
like. You need to appoint someone to run the operations, basically. You can still be MD if you want to, but your job is business development manager. That's what you're good at. Go and hunt down those target people that you want and find out where they're going to be, the right people. Like, who is the person that's in charge of eco-friendly haulage or whatever, or that kind of bit in Waitrose? Where are they going to be next? You know, try and see if you can find that information. It's much better than like asking like your local businesses if they want to stick a sticker on the side of your truck or something like that, because it's advertising. That is very small fry turning over stuff.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're so right. I think you have to think out of the box, don't you? And what's going to position you as someone a bit different to somebody who they already work with. It's ironic. I work in PR, but I'm not very good at PR in myself. And that's probably more... I know kind of partly why that is.
That's like the builders thing, isn't it? You know, they're really good builders, but their kitchen's falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. The whole house is falling down, and their poor partner's literally tearing their hair out. And I think I know that's partly because by nature I'm quite a shy person, hence why this is big deal for me doing this today.
You don't strike me as shy.
Well, this is the thing.
Put a good
like
facade on
exactly,
because I've seen you talk in public events.
years of practice. You know, that's what PR does for you. Actually, it pushes you into the most bizarre circumstances. Like, you know, little old me from Horsham hanging around with A-list celebrities and all that, and politicians and royalty. Like, it pushes you into circumstances that you never thought you'd be in. So you have to hold your own. But I think, when you're that sort of person inclined where you're not maybe very comfortable or confident pushing yourself out there, that has been running my own business actually has been a massive learning curve on that, because you have to have big balls to run a business, don't you?
Yeah.
You know, metaphorically speaking, obviously, and
we don't do too PC here, but enough.
Exactly,
enough so we don't get kicked off YouTube.
And you know, and I think if you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to survive, are you?
Yeah.
And so I am definitely having to practice what I preach. So I'm telling clients that are business owners to do X, Y, and Z. So I should absolutely be doing the same as well. And part of it is, yes, I might not be able to do it as immediately as they can because I'm multitasking with multiple different clients. They're just working on one business, aren't they? But I know that's my downfall.
And there is a
if I don't
difference,
do it,
like,
so.
as your business grows, you become a brand. I know it's your name and reputation, but you become a brand in its own right, and it needs probably less impetus put into it all the time anyway, because your kind of PR is almost you're working with these people, isn't it? So it's like self-generating as you get to a certain
absolutely.
size.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, I don't like to probably take advantage too much of sort of going on their coattails.
Name dropping,
exactly.
But you find big marketing companies do that, don't they? You know, where they go, right, we work for XYZ and we do the marketing campaigns for this. They'll pull on those things.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? I don't know if you found the same, but when I set up the business, I never really thought about too much about where I worked before, because I suppose when you go through life, you kind of sort of slightly end a chapter, don't you? And then you move on to the next organisation you go and work for. And it's not since I actually set up the business, and obviously people ask you, where have you worked before, blah, blah, blah. And it's really made me kind of reflect quite a lot. And actually you kind of think about it and sort of, I suppose, what you have done and what you didn't do, and maybe mistakes you made or achievements that you had. And actually you realise actually you should probably talk about it more, because to your point, people will probably recognise those businesses or brands. They probably have got some kind of personal connection, so that automatically opens up a conversation as well, doesn't it? So the amount of times I've mentioned to someone that I used to work at John Lewis and they've talked to me about the Christmas advert, for example. Do you know what I mean? So
but it's a good conversation starter, isn't it?
Yeah. So it kind of made me think, perhaps don't be afraid to talk about where you've worked before. And it's not necessarily such a bad thing to, talk about it. So.
Well, that kind of brings me on to something that you put further on. So I've got your kind of your 3 to 5 year goals are very sort of similar to continue to grow it, and then really your kind of more longer term is to be not the only person in the business, be working on it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was quite interesting and makes a good segue. Was one of the things, your kind of challenges, if you like, was about crisis of confident imposter syndrome, which we've talked a bit about in the podcast before.
Yeah.
But obviously you work in PR, and imposter syndrome is quite difficult, like as a psychological thing. What's your kind of stuck with that, I suppose?
Yeah, I think, do you know what? I did a speaker slot, and I think you were there at the Barrow Club, which I know the Barrow Club has had a few mentions on this podcast before, so we're not getting paid for it.
Paul's lapping it up, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And
he needs some PR too.
Ooh, controversial. I'll let you talk to him about that.
He's all right with that.
Okay, fine. And yeah, when you get offered a speaker slot at something like that, which is kind of fairly intimate, but obviously it's really well attended and there's some really well respected businesses in that room, you definitely feel, I did. I definitely felt a bit of imposter syndrome, because I'm like, are they actually going to believe a word that I actually say? And I genuinely felt nervous doing that, and also with the other speaker slots that I've done. But I suppose to my earlier point, I knew I had to do it. I needed to push myself. And I think, like with anything in life, once you do it more than a couple of times, you become a bit more comfortable with it. I don't know whether you necessarily feel like you completely ace it, but you do feel a bit more comfortable with it. It feels less of a weird situation, I suppose, doesn't it? So, I kind of have been trying to re-look at my imposter syndrome from a speaker slot point of view, but also another thing that I'm probably not very good at is I don't use my personal LinkedIn very much. So I've got a company LinkedIn page, and I do use that really regularly. But I would say probably before being a business owner, maybe once every year, if you're lucky, maybe once every 3 years, basically.
You're not in it, really,
and it's not because I regularly go on it, so I'm regularly commenting on other people's posts, liking posts and stuff. But for me, again, it's just a bit like I just don't like promoting what I've been doing that week or my opinion on stuff. And I suppose it was because I wondered whether people would genuinely be interested, and two, they'd be thinking, well, what on earth is she talking about? Like, she doesn't know. And so I think it's kind of been rerouted from there. Like, you know, I'm connected with lots of other people in the PR and comms industry on LinkedIn. And so I was always worried that they were going to not agree.
It's funny how people do that. Like, it never crossed my mind that people might think to me, you don't know what you're talking about. Because I actually, in a weird way, I thought to myself, if someone says, like, this is incorrect or whatever, I'll comment back and we'll have a conversation. And in my heart, I was like, that just makes sure the post does really well, because it's got engagement. I don't really care whether I was right or wrong, to be honest. The conversation is enough to get the post up there, to be honest. But back to the imposter syndrome, do you find that creeps in a little bit, like maybe with your like pricing or your advice, or you're all right with that?
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. I mean, again, and it probably I'm hoping other business owners have done the same. Is certainly when I started out, I probably did undervalue my pricing structure, so I was probably very good value, and I know I was compared to the experience that I have. And I think it's also a bit weird because my whole career was working in London. This is the first time I've properly worked in Sussex. I kind of knew early on I probably wouldn't be able to charge what I'd like to charge London. So that was, I was kind of fine with that because I knew that was what I was getting myself into. So it wasn't a shock or anything. But yes, I am slowly creeping them up, but it's been a gradual thing. And I think, again, because once you, I suppose, have a good few clients under your belt when you first start and they've been pleased with your work, then it gives you the confidence to think, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. It's going to be okay. So,
it's definitely hard, like imposter syndrome when you're pricing stuff and knowing your worth. And we did a lot of... at the early days, we did an awful lot of just get money in the till, doesn't matter, you know, because you need money to survive. But as time went by, it was quite difficult convincing those legacy clients to pay a little bit more. And we did go through that journey of, I wouldn't say imposter syndrome creeped in too much, but it was like, are we really worth what our competitors are charging this? And I've gone miles below.
Yeah.
I need to bring it up so it's within like 10% of our competitors. So they're still getting value for money, but it's going to be a big increase over what I perhaps the early adopter discount might have been. But I felt that, like, if people really respected you and they were the type of the client that you wanted to work with and they wanted to work with you, they didn't mind the price increase and you justified it and understood it. And they've all test drove you, essentially, for those previous years or months. So, it can creep in a little bit, that, because it's hard to, like, get your worth over, isn't it? And you worry about people being like, oh, but who are you? You know, you're not working with John Lewis anymore. You know, that kind of stuff. It keeps in. But you have to really believe in yourself, I think, and just go, I know what the market rate is. I know what I'm worth. And if you're not willing to pay that, I don't know if you're the right type of client, especially the new ones. The legacy ones are harder to move forward. That's an emotional journey, and you might lose the odd one if you do that. But they're probably the ones that weren't going to stick around anyway because they were a bit price sensitive. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, I'll absolutely kind of take that on board, and it's good to kind of know about your experience as well. I think the one challenge that I have found working in a what you call a creative industry, because PR kind of fits under that banner, is people always they want to negotiate more because creativity is really hard to value it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you've got designers on, they would probably say the same or have a little moan, that kind of stuff. and because from a PR point of view, the one frustrating element to a client is I couldn't sit here and guarantee you coverage in XYZ place. And if any PR consultant or agency did, I think my personal view is I think they're potentially wrong because you can't guarantee it. It's just not possible because you haven't paid for the space. So it has been a bit of a balancing act because, you know, if they feel like they're not getting their return on investment per se, and we're just talking from a media coverage point of view, PR is so much more than that, then... Yes, I think, the discussions about price seem to come up a bit more.
I think that is definitely the case. Like, creative space, if you work in any kind of bit of that, is quite hard to justify or give numbers that back it up. Often, you know, people think, oh, I'm going to, I don't know, pay for a billboard at a train station. It's going to return X, Y, Z. A bit like going to the networking. I think networking is in a creative space, if I'm honest, because unlike you, a lot of people they might pay £20 for a breakfast or something, and then they go back and their bosses, if you like, are like, oh, I don't understand what it is. Did you get any work out of it? And it's like, well, no, you've got to go probably for about 18 months at £20 a week or whatever it is to have these breakfasts to harness those relationships. It's very hard to do that. And the more kind of accountancy-minded or figures-focused you are, the harder it is for you to accept those things. Like, accountants are generally the worst. Bearing in mind I have a business partner who's an accountant, but their understanding of, like, creative space is quite hard because it's not a tangible thing that you can tie to it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, and that's why, again, on the demystifying point is if you can try and kind of, like, get people a bit on that journey, and it doesn't always work 100% for everyone, like, absolutely, but it's a challenge, and I don't think we'll ever quite fix it for anybody that works in the creative industry. It's a challenge, and it probably always will be, but you have to make an investment at some point, would be my advice. So.
I definitely think that you should work on your own profile on LinkedIn and your kind of social presence as well. Even not necessarily like your if you take Terry, who you know,
I know, she's the queen at it. Yeah,
she's very good at, like, walking down the street. You know, doing the stuff. I think your business is less casual than that. It's more aimed at a more formal audience. So it might pay you to go to a podcast studio, and maybe if you look at our TikTok stuff that we do with Luke, we do these kind of like less than a minute quick fire things and stuff like that. I think people might resonate with that a little bit, and it gets in front of even your CEOs. They still flick through aimlessly reels when they're in bed and they've got nothing to do. So I think that might be quite good. And you would have seen, like, even people we mentioned, like before, like Paul Britton, he does stuff at his desk where he just, like, someone fires a question at him and then he answers it, and it's less than a minute or there or thereabouts. Those sort of things I do think do quite well, because people tend to stop and they've got an attention span of a minute when they're just scrolling around, but not longer than that.
Absolutely. And funny enough, I've found when I've done on my business Instagram account, the posts that seem to do well are the ones that I'm in.
Yeah.
Which,
people like the data suggests that if you've got faces in it and it's got a human element to it, and also people like the personal pages, generally speaking.
Absolutely.
The LinkedIn's littered with like business profiles and stuff. Like me and Luke did an exercise where I did the same post on my page as we did on a Charles Cox one, and it got much more engagement on my own one. Yeah. No particular reason really, other than the fact I think people buy people, and then companies are a bit saturated on LinkedIn. Yeah,
the interesting thing is I think the LinkedIn company pages were always created so that they probably would never get as much engagement as a personal one. But saying that, actually, my company page, even though I don't have hundreds and hundreds of followers, I get really good engagement. So, you're right. Like, you do have to have more of that personal touch. And the interesting thing about Instagram is actually people switch off after 3 seconds. So you only have 3 seconds. You don't even get a minute.
Don't even get that. Yeah.
So it's all about that hook. And again, like, I've been testing lots of different ways on Reels and stuff at how to do that. And and that's been good to learn, because I have to give social media advice to my clients as well. So again, if I'm not doing it, I can't really tell them to do it if I'm not practicing it myself. So
that's the thing, I think. And then they'll see that, and then 100%. It's hard to not follow what your teacher is telling you, essentially.
Exactly.
That's why Terry does so much of it, because she's right in that personal branding space. So if she can't brand her own personality, then people will be like, well, if you can't do it for yourself, how are you going to do it for me? So it's a constant. So her feeding the YouTube monster is probably a full-time job, I would say.
And it's really funny. I used to kind of watch these influencers, and I've worked with influencers in other PR jobs and stuff, and they have them obviously as full-time jobs, and you think to yourself, wow, how can that actually be a full-time job? And then when you kind of have to do it then for your own business, you kind of think, actually, I can kind of see how this can be, because it takes a long time doing the scripting, the brainstorming, the actual filming, then the editing, as I'm sure Luke knows very well, and actually it does take an actual long time. So, but I mean, what a job to be a full-time content creator. Gosh, living the dream, isn't it? Like,
Well, I'm sure if you speak to them, they might feel a bit like burnt out by it sometimes.
Quite possibly, but I mean, they get. I know how much they get paid, because I paid their bills, so they do all right.
They can get some pretty good money,
exactly.
Especially if you hit the right things.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just quickly, your other challenges were not having your own team and to be able to bat ideas off of. I think we've discussed about it. So I suppose what we've covered today is making that move to employ someone so that you can be that business development manager, making sure you're targeting the right type of client and you're actually getting yourself in front of them. A lot of business associates, colleagues of mine, they've done things like in your space, I don't know if this is quite, but as an example, you might find loads of articles that are a bit niche, or like maybe the owner doesn't know. So we're picking on Tom Sits at Andy, for instance.
Poor Tom Sits.
You're going to go and check that out now, aren't you?
I will,
Andy incoming.
Hi.
So for example, then you might find information on him, and then maybe rather than just writing it out in email or a letter or something, send something, like in a shoebox that they've got to open or whatever. It looks exciting, or it's got a pen inside it or something. Something that distinguishes it, that's actually going to get to their desk, and they're going to open it, and then when they look at it, they're like, oh, that's really quite impressive. Like here, people have figured out that I like gin, basically, and I don't drink so much of it anymore, but I used to like gin a lot, and then they would send me like a gin advent calendar at Christmas and be like, think of us in the new year, these are all the things. But it forced me to open it, to look at it, and I was like, actually, that is so much better than the 15 emails I got last week, which we just put Control-Alt-Delete on a lot of them.
Absolutely. And that is PR for you, actually. I would have I've definitely done that in the past, trying to win, when I've worked for other people, trying to win new business and gimmicks as well, even I've done like what you would call media drops, where we've gone to magazine houses or radio stations to drop off product in the hope that it's going to get mentioned. And I've done that at Radio 1, where I used to do the PR for Warburton's bread, delivered them breakfast in the morning, and it got on air.
I think it's those things, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So that will get you in front of the right people, I think.
Absolutely.
And then, especially if you can demonstrate your value to them. So
absolutely.
But you do need to make that leap for that employee, because you can't service clients and do that. So it's very difficult to do both unless you haven't got enough clients and you've got the time. But it strikes me that you've got a fairly good workflow coming in, so at some
it's
point
not bad.
You probably have to make that leap for that.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's just trying to work out when is that right time to do that. And I mean, I'm already financially, I would say, living like a student anyway. So I think employing somebody else, it wouldn't be a big shock, because I'm doing that anyway.
Well, I think it's good for people to live like that sometimes, occasionally in their life. Like you get like better off, and then you go out on your own. Like when I went out on my own, I had 20k in my bank account, and I thought that was enough to see me for 2 years if I didn't really get many clients. And what's the worst case scenario? I'd shoot through my savings, and then I'd probably have to sell the business to another business and then merge and then go and work for them. That was my kind of plan. But I believed in myself, and I've been fairly frugal throughout my life. I mean, I like to spend and have a good time or whatever, and life is for enjoying, but I can also rein it in and be fairly frugal if I need to be. So I think that does you quite well, actually. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't born with a silver spoon, because that would have been more of a shock.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We were brought up quite. We're probably lower than middle class, I would say.
Yeah.
In terms of household income, really.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah, we can do it. And also, when you've been a student, it's not so much a shock. Although it was a while ago now, I might have temporarily forgotten some bits of it.
Exactly.
But it's not a complete anomaly in that I'm like, what the hell's this?
Yeah, and as long as you can keep your head above the water and stuff like that, obviously, if you've got family, then it's harder for some people.
Sure.
But as long as you're keeping all the bills paid and the rest of it, and you can always adjust to stuff. And sometimes it's good to have those resets as well. Like,
absolutely.
Not going on those fancy holidays. You go for a UK holiday or walk around a park or something. It can be just as good. And people forget that, I think.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. We've become too ingrained.
Commoditised,
exactly. And see what's on social media as well. We've become sucked in.
Yeah, we all want to be in Santorini in the swimming pool with the infinity thing on 100%. The edge of it.
I know. Yeah, one day.
When you can probably go camping in the forest and have just as much fun.
Yeah, absolutely, and get wet.
Yeah, exactly.
By the rain,
see the
rather
stars
than the pool.
at night. Let's put on the positives, all right, camping. The fire and the stars at
100%,
night.
yeah,
not the rain.
absolutely.
And the bears and whatever.
Yeah.
Deers or something.
Yeah, you'd be unlucky if there was bears in the UK, wouldn't you?
You would be. They've escaped from Longleat or something.
Absolutely, God.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think we've kind of covered most of the things. Was there anything specific you wanted to ask?
I mean, the only other thing that it'd be good to get your advice is, I suppose, the real long-term, vision of the business was, so I'd like to model the business as an employee-owned business eventually. So, and that's partly taken from inspiration of working at John Lewis and Waitrose. I completely got bought into that. And that was part of the reason that I really wanted to go and work there. It was a dream place to go and work for because of everything that it stood for. And I can definitely see the benefits of being employee owned. And actually, there's lots of big businesses actually out there that you probably aren't aware of that have got that business structure basically. Obviously, it takes a bit of work and a real lot of trust really to kind of create that structure. What's been your advice or experience of kind of that sort of thinking?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's two different types. You can be your John Lewis type, which is like a massive operation in that sense, in terms of volumes of staff and the way that they run that system. It's probably someone's full-time job just to do the administration of that particular...
I know those people.
Yeah, or many people, not just one.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you take your typical business that's got sub 20 employees or something, You have two, in my opinion, you have two kind of stances to take. You can either reward the people that are at the top that are, perhaps contributing more than, say, your workforce down at the moment. You might have a lot of turnover. Like if you work in a chain of coffee shops, for instance, you probably wouldn't generally get the people that are doing the baristering involved in some kind of share ownership, but maybe the manager of the store or something like that, because ultimately you don't want that person leaving. That's about retaining people, isn't it? But there are some really good apps nowadays. I cannot remember the name of the app that I will recommend to you, but I'll try and send it on to you just for the future. But what you can do is they will come in and they will do an independent valuation of your business, and you can say, like, these staff have all got like 1% and you retain the other 90% or whatever it is you want. You can issue more shares in your business if you need to dilute their 1%. So if you get to Waitrose size, obviously 1% at day one would be a lot of money in today's sense. But the company come in and they independently value your books based off like your Xero or Software or Sage performance, and then that gives a valuation, and then the staff can log on and they can see in the app exactly what their 1% is worth on an annual basis. So that's quite motivating for staff members if you're going to give that sort of reward to it. What you have to do is protect yourself, really, because you have to remember the premise of it is to retain staff. So you can't make it super onerous, but you have to strike the balance of being like, look, you get it after 4 years of being here or whatever time stamp you want to put on it. If you leave, it's reduced, or you lose it or whatever. It's you can only cash it in at certain events and stuff like that. So you've got to protect yourself from like some sort of event happening. Like if you were like Waitrose and suddenly something happened and then everyone went, oh, I'm going to cash it in, if they were able to, it could cause you quite a lot of problems with the business. So although you may never grow to Waitrose size, I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't know any PR companies in the world that are the size of Waitrose employee-wise.
I probably have worked at one.
So there might be. But in that volume of it, you just need to protect yourself from mass people exercising whatever the clause might be in the contract. But I think it's an excellent way of keeping people on board, keeping staff and interested in the rest of it. You just have to make sure that it actually works for you, because ultimately you don't want to give away so much stuff that you've got nothing when you come to retire or at the end of the journey. I mean, some people will just say, look, I'm just going to leave it to the hands. I've got enough income. The original owners of Waitrose probably were like, look, we've got enough. Like they probably own property that's rented back to them via some of the stores and stuff. So that, where do you draw the line when you've got hundreds of millions coming in already? Does it really matter if you give the whole company away to a staff share? But your average business owner, you're probably going to be relying upon an exit at some point, or a management buyout or something along those lines. So you just got to make sure that you factor all of that in when you're deciding to give stuff to retain. But
it's all good points, and I think the way that I kind of would like to structure is it's not just from a profit sharing point of view, but the thing that really I think makes employee-owned businesses special is that sharing decision making as well. So it's that democratic structure. And not everyone is motivated by money. I know money is really high. But at the same time, it's people want to feel like they belong and have an impact and influence. It's that Maslow hierarchy of needs thing that we all learn in business studies. And so I think that
psychology, it reappears there as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't do psychology at college, but it's that's what really appealed, is that I kind of wanted it to feel like it wasn't just my business. Like everyone had an opportunity to, impact.
I think again, that's really good, and you can install that in lots of small business. We do that a lot here. Like I'm quite open with the staff of what our plans are, where we might be going with things, but ultimately someone has to steer the ship, don't they? So they have to make a decision. But I'm quite open to people giving me opinions, feeding me the information, and then I feel like that makes you make a better choice anyway, because you're not just going on your own opinions or gut instincts.
Absolutely.
So, we have a lot of managers meetings. We send newsletters out around to the staff and the rest of it, letting them know what we're doing and what's going on in other departments and stuff like that, so they can have a say and be like, do you know what, this process doesn't work properly. I think we need to tweak it a bit, and we'll look at that sort of stuff. So definitely giving them a say and involving them as well.
Absolutely.
Like when we've acquired other businesses, we might be under NDAs, but we've always said we're actively pursuing this. It's going to bring this, and letting them know what's happening rather than just kind of, go, oh, well, we've just bought this and that's coming in sort of thing. So,
Sure. Okay, great. All right, well, watch this space then,
Yeah.
Matt. No pressure now that I've said it. Blimey, I better do it.
I know. You've committed now.
Yeah, I did say 10 years then.
Yeah. But I think you just got to make sure it's right for you, and you go, right, my goal is this, I need to protect that, and then the rest of it is there, because ultimately, unless you're like a philanthropist or whatever, I always try that. That's it. Like, you just give everything away. Then, mostly people do that because they can afford to do it.
Yeah.
In reality, very few people just give everything away and then live in poverty when they're older.
Yeah.
It's probably because they've got a big bank stocks and shares portfolio or some property empire in the background, so they've given the business away, and it's good for PR to do that. So.
Well, there you go. Always thinking, and actually that wasn't the driver, ironically. It was actually being a good human being. But there you go.
But I'm sure some of those decisions are made because it's good for PR.
Wow, yeah. Maybe you should come and work for me, Matt. Do you want to do that? It seems like you know lots about PR.
If it all goes wrong,
okay, we'll
many different skills.
Okay. Excellent.
But super. Well, I hope that's answered that question
Thank
anyway.
you, it did.
And
Thank
we kind of
you.
covered those key points as well.
Great.
Working on the social media, getting the staff in, and that business development thing. I think that's quite common. And the imposter syndrome as well. You shouldn't worry. I know it's hard to say you shouldn't worry about it, but you come across very confident when I've heard you speak and stuff. And the legacy clients with the pricing is just something you have to work out.
Absolutely.
It's part of the journey. But
100%.
Believe in yourself.
Thank you. No, it's really helpful. I really appreciate the chat today. Thanks, Matt.
No worries. Super. Well, it's been lovely having you on. It'd be super to have you on in a year's time, like Andy did.
All right. I'll hold you to that.
See where you're at, and hopefully you've implemented some of these things, and then we can. There's always more hurdles in business.
There will.
So
There's every day's a school day, isn't there, Matt?
Indeed, yes. All right.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
And you, thank you.
All right. Cheers. Take care.